You're about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So the FDA is taking steps to restrict the 7-OH opioid products that apparently people are able to get at gas stations. And these act like opioids. And the chemical name 7-hydroxymetragenine, known as 7-OH or 7-hydroxy, can be dangerous. It's a concentrated byproduct of the kratom plant. And it has potential for abuse because it binds to the opioid receptors, acting like an opioid. The FDA is releasing a report to now educate the public about the health concerns and its distinction from the kratom plant leaf. According to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., they say today we are taking action on 7-hydroxy as a critical step in the fight against opioid addiction. We will protect the health of our nation's youth as we advance our mission to make America healthy again. So this recommendation, according to the HHS, follows a thorough medical and scientific analysis by the FDA and is one of several efforts to address the agency's concern about the growing availability of these products. There are no FDA-approved 7-OH drugs. They're not lawful in dietary supplements. You cannot add it to conventional foods. And vape stores, according to Marty Makary, FDA commissioner, are popping up and selling these products that have concentrated 7-hydroxy or 7-OH. He says 7-OH is an opioid that can be more potent than morphine. We need regulation and public education to prevent another wave of the opioid epidemic. So apparently people are able to buy this at gas stations, corner stores, and vape shops. And kids are having access to these. Apparently, there are 7-hydroxy products, and it's hydroxymetragenine, the full name, or 7-OH products, in fruit-flavored gummies and ice cream cones. If these are not, shall we say, reviewed by the FDA or regulated by the FDA, there's no accurate label. And sometimes these might be disguised as kratom. And so these are things that are happening. So the FDA is warning companies, warning healthcare professionals, warning consumers. And this kratom, it's a supplement sold as an energy booster, mood lifter, pain reliever. But kratom has side effects too. It's an herbal extract that comes from the leaves of the evergreen tree called the Mitragyna speciosa. And the tree grows in Southeast Asia. So kratom users chew the tree's leaves, swallow, brew dry kratom, and extract liquid. But people have been using this in America as a stimulant to give them more energy or make them feel calm. But we're seeing people get addicted. We're also seeing people get sick. Kratom works quickly, and this is why it's gotten so popular. The effects could last a few hours. The more you take, unfortunately, the more side effects you can have. The FDA has warned people not to use it. Apparently, poison control centers in the United States received more than 3,400 reports about the use of kratom from 2014 to 2019. Now, this comes from Mayo Clinic. We don't have data. I don't have the data here going up to 2024. But some people have died. They had high blood pressure, confusion, seizures. They could get weight loss, dry mouth, nausea, vomiting, constipation, liver damage, muscle pain, high blood pressure. And kratom can also cause dizziness, drowsiness, change in smells, hallucinations, false beliefs, delusions, depression, trouble breathing, confusion, and seizures. Being told that kratom products have been linked to a small number of deaths, why aren't these being regulated? And so because kratom is sold over the counter, it's allowing other things like this 7-OH to be marketed as such when it's not. And unfortunately, people are thinking they're getting something that is technically legal and over the counter. So the Drug Enforcement Agency wants to go back to the 7-OH and make it a class 1. Or a schedule 1 for illegality. Like heroin. Marijuana is still a schedule 1, which is kind of controversial, because on one end I want us to study it, and I do think there's medicinal applications. On the other end, it is harming people who use them. Gateway drug. We are having people have psychosis. Look at that girl that stabbed her boyfriend 108 times after smoking a bong. So I do think marijuana should be a scheduled drug, whether it needs to be a schedule 1, so that's, but we have people having access to things that are acting like opioids. And if the 7-hydroxymetragenine binds to the opioid receptors, it acts like an opioid. And that could cause later withdrawal, respiratory depression, abuse. And I think what it is people want to feel better. I mean, the olden days, you would drink some coffee or drink some tea. You'd get out in the sun, work the farm, maybe meet and talk to other people. And nowadays, I need to roll out of bed and reach for an energy drink or reach for a vape pen. And it kills me to see how dependent we are. And we're teaching our kids to do that, too. It's funny. When I was in college and medical school, everybody was taking no-dos. They were talking about no-dos. I didn't want to take that. No-dos was, I think, a high-potency caffeine. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to get a heart attack. I was already hyper as it was. Problem is I didn't like coffee. I would force myself to drink it on rounds just to stay awake. Instead, I would drink diet soda a little bit. But honestly, I was too busy and I just kept going. And I think it was my drive that kept me awake. But many individuals don't know about things until somebody tells them. And if their friends are saying, go get 7-hydroxy or go get kratom or, go vape, these people are doing it. And then they get hooked. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So I get asked this all the time. What is the purpose of the appendix? What is the purpose of the chin? What is the purpose of male nipples? Why do we have things in our body that are not needed, not necessary? Actually, I think they're all necessary. Even male nipples, they have a role. Absolutely, they have a role. So I think we need to kind of get out of our head that there are parts of our body that are useless. Wisdom teeth. People say, well, wisdom teeth are a pain in the butt. We get wisdom teeth and we have to have them taken out. For some individuals, those wisdom teeth are an extra pair of teeth. They're very useful. But for others, depending on our jaw, they may grow in awkwardly or at an angle. I had to have mine removed. They cause headaches. So if our jaws have started to evolve and change, maybe somebody can argue that the teeth aren't necessary, but there's a lot of people that still use their wisdom teeth. So I think wisdom teeth have a role. Appendix, I've told you guys this, appendix is not a useless organ. The appendix does have a role. The appendix is a hollow tube that can house zillions of bacteria. And it's located at the start of the colon in the right side, such that if there is a need for bacteria to colonate, if the small intestine or large intestine, this, because of, let's say you had a diarrhea or a stomach bug or you're ill, the appendix has the ability to house bacteria that can then colonize our intestine. Now, there might be some other uses, but the appendix is not a useless organ. Now, can people live well without their appendix? Can they live well without their wisdom teeth? Yes, they can. But it doesn't mean it's useless. There's a lot of discussions on chins. Why do we have a chin? What does that do? Well, I think it does help us with facial expression. I think our chins do provide support. I think it also provides protection when you hit your mouth. I think the chin protects your teeth. How many times have I fallen on my chin, but I haven't cracked a tooth? So we do believe that the chin has a purpose in terms of protecting your teeth. You got to think back to caveman days. If you didn't have your teeth, there were no dentures. You would have a tough time eating and shearing into meat and fish and vegetables and nuts. So your body had to somehow protect you and the ability to eat. And that's what I think the chin does. Some people also think that the chin might help in terms of sexual prowess and attraction, where some people might want the broader chin, versus a milder, pointy one, so it might be useful in that. But I really think its purpose is to help the blow and redistribute energy that could be causing your jaw to crumble in terms of facial trauma. That's how I feel. Chin does. Now, what about male nipples? I think they have a purpose. So male nipples happen because as you are growing as an embryo, before the chromosome starts branching out, causing your male body organs to start develop, the mammary part of your development has already been done. And so the embryonic development, I think this is about it's the sex determining gene, the SRY prime on the Y chromosome. That starts, I believe, about the 6th week of pregnancy, developing your male reproductive organs. But your mammary gland tissue and nipples, because by default you're a woman until the Y chromosome triggers the male growth. The mammary part is there. Now, why would God or nature do that? If you're going to become a male, why waste energy? Why waste resources on nipples and mammary tissue? Well, technically, males have mammary tissue. And if, God forbid, it's a famine, or men have the ability. It's going to be really hard, especially if they don't have the proper hormones. But it does allow there to be a framework in case they do need to produce milk. That's not, though, my thinking in terms of what the nipples are for. I think the nipples are for sex. Not so much for stimulation, but because you know how women's breasts are round and they kind of like stop you. You know, we spoke about how the roundness in the human bodies will tell somebody, whoa, stop. And then you got the triangle, right, of our pubic area. And then it kind of tells you this is where you go. You know, so you have the stop and you got the arrows, kind of like traffic signs. With men, same thing. You know, in the caveman days and in terms of, you know, species trying to find mates, all right, a chest has to be attractive for some. For me, it's a biggie. I mean, when I'm looking at a guy, I'm at eye level of their chest. I don't always look at their waist and below. And so one way to stop a mate, potential mate, and have them look at you is, again, the circles, the contrast. If you just had kind of a flat chest or wall, you couldn't see. Now, somebody would say, well, why? I mean, obviously, if somebody had a chest, whether they had nipples or not, you don't remember. People get nearsighted, farsighted. Now, sometimes you can't tell the difference between a dude and a wall, especially if their jokes aren't funny. So I think the nipples are a attraction to and a contrast to remind you, wait, stop. There's a man here. Look down. There's also some arrows sometimes, and then even more, shall we say, appendages that point in certain directions. And you're like, oh, okay. So I guess that is who I'm supposed to propagate and propagate the species with. So I think there's a lot of, you know, body parts we have. Look at our rudimentary tail, our coccyx. So maybe our forefathers and mothers and our previous ancestors had tails in evolution. Why wouldn't that just go away? Why would we have it in a curve? Well, because it does provide support. It provides protection, especially now that we are bipedal and we don't walk on our hands and feet. So it provides some extra support, protection, ligaments attach. So the coccyx does have a purpose. I think I really find, you know, I'm going to be really hard pressed to believe anybody that a certain part of our body is useless. Okay. Now, I think a unibrow. Now, I'm tired of plucking my eyebrows. I would like to know why sometimes we have to have eyebrow here. I don't have it as much anymore, but boy, did I have to do a lot of plucking. I'd like to know why that has to happen. Maybe it's to protect the eyes. I mean, I have lived in the sun most of my life. I've lived in sunnier climates. Maybe you need thicker eyebrows to protect your eyes as like shade. I don't like wearing hats. I'm not a big hat wearer. Our lips have purpose. I can't think of anything that doesn't have purpose. Or nails have purpose. Let me see. In fact, you know, there's a list here of body parts that are supposed to be vestigial. Hold on a second. Wait, I found it and I want to find it again. Your plica semilunaris, your third eyelid remnant. You got a small fold of tissue in the inner corner. I remember, I think with animals, they call it third eye, where it's that piece of tissue in the eyelid. They say it's a small fold of tissue, and it's a vestige of the nictitating membrane. No longer a functional eyelid, it does support eyeball rotation and helps with tear drainage. I never had any problem with plica semilunaris. As far as I'm concerned, with a name like that, it's probably useful. Your erector pili muscles and goosebumps. People think your goosebumps and the piloerection that creates the goosebumps don't have a role. I think they do. Goosebumps increase the surface area of your body. It also helps bring the hair. So if you need to, in terms of temperature, in terms of increasing your surface area, in terms of getting the hair out to provide warmth, I think goosebumps do have a reason, a purpose. it's a reflex. They said it would allow our ancestors to trap heat and to be more furry. Again, something I necessarily don't need. So I'm good with that. Your palmaris longus muscle. It's a muscle in the forearm that 14% of us don't have. All right, but it still is in the arm. So anyway, I hope I taught you guys something. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So let's go to some of your emails and messages. Brian writes, Doc, none of my children or friends' children go to church anymore, despite all being raised Catholic. How do you suggest to your adult kids to embrace faith more than they should? So you're not the first person to ask. This is very common. We are seeing in the younger generations, their attitude towards church and religion much different than when older generations grew up. For me, I'm Gen X. And I was raised, if you didn't follow your religion, a lightning bolt would hit you. There was a lot of fear. The younger generations are bucking a lot of traditions. They are much more scientific in their thinking. They question the existence of God more than Gen X's and baby boomers and older generations. And also a big part of that is society. And so in the olden days, you didn't have Netflix, TV, all the entertainment you had. Most of your entertainment and community and friend group was through your church. And so you would have socials, you would have mass, or you would have or in Judaism, you would go to synagogue, and then you would meet up afterwards, or you would have Shabbat dinner. And so much of the entertainment and the celebratory part, as well as the religion was very entrenched in the life and in your day-to-day practices. And I notice that many younger individuals don't feel community in their churches or temples or mosques. They don't need to go to church to make friends, to be with friends, to find a spouse. And if they don't feel they have that need, they're not going to donate. They're not going to sign up, and they're going to use what they're more comfortable with, the online options. Also, COVID really hurt church and temple and mosque attendance. Once governors, and the governor in my state was Sisolak at the time, and we had the High Holy Days coming up, and our rabbi was saying, why can't you let people come to the synagogue to pray? And apparently they opened up churches and synagogues right after the High Holidays and that, that was kind of a slap in the face to, many people who, are people of faith. And once people saw, wait a second, I could just pray online. I could watch Mass online. I could watch the service online. I'm getting my prayer in that way. But you're missing communion. Now you're missing a lot when you're not in the church or in the temple. And so the question Brian has is, how do you talk to your kids about embracing faith? And my children are less religious than me in some respect. They're more religious in other respects. And the first thing I've done with my children is I've explained to them what I have personally lived through. And I tell them, your religion is going to be very personal. No two Jews, no two Catholics, no two Christians worship the exact same, because your relationship with God is unique. And if you do have a Judeo-Christian home or a Judeo-Catholic home or a Judeo-LDS home, you're going to be combining aspects of both faith, and they're beautiful. Our faith is not the only one. Our faith is not the right one. I know they say Jews are the chosen people, but God chose, I believe, all of us. That's why we're all here. God did not like the Amalekites, the Philistines, the Hittites. They're all gone. But he loves Jews, Christians, Catholics, Mormons, Muslims. We're here. We're here for a reason. And to embrace religion doesn't necessarily mean, to me, I told him, that you have to follow every single law. But to me, don't be cocky. Don't think that the reason why you're here on earth is because of just a couple atoms exploding. Now, God, I believe, played a role, because both of you would have died if it wasn't for prayer and God superseding. And I explained to them what I've seen and what I've witnessed and what I believed. You don't have to believe it. You're going to get your own signs later, and you might never get a sign. But one thing I know is praying makes me feel better. And whenever I go through any sort of issue in life, I pray for strength. I don't pray for God to fix the situation. I pray for strength. And that has helped me time and time again. Whether you need to see it statistically or at a macro or micro level, that's between you and God. But for me, this is why I have faith. And I noticed that they are spiritual and they do embrace faith. And one of my sons may be marrying the love of his life, who's Catholic, and I love her. And I'm really excited because we're going to have a Jewish Catholic home. It's very exciting, especially since we have other Catholics in the family. And the love of faith in God, it was interesting because both of them had said, I really couldn't be with somebody who didn't believe in God. And that was good for them. And that worked out for them. But, when you have family members who are doubting, and that does happen, God understands that there's doubt. In science, we always have doubt. I know the Biden administration didn't let us doubt some of the data on the vaccines and the dirty masks people were wearing. But in science, you are allowed to have hypotheses, test, question, doubt, reconfirm. So if you do have scientific thinking individuals, you are allowed to, what science can't explain is that God. And let them, when this happened to you, do you have a scientific explanation for it, or do you think God intervened? There's no right answer or wrong answer, but look at what's going on in your life. And then the thing I finally say is it can't hurt. To pray to God can't hurt. To me, if I didn't, I think, well, that could be a problem. Because again, I grew up with more fear in terms of religion. But does it hurt? Thank God. Pray before a trip that it'll be safe. Thank the Lord before you eat. Thank the Lord before you go to sleep. And that it's okay to not follow a religion to its upteenth percent of accuracy and loss. That's what overwhelmed me. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to follow all the laws. That's impossible. And then you feel like, well, then I'm done for. No. Be a good person. Do good things. Even if you don't pray. Work with charities. Volunteer. Be kind. You could pray and think things in your mind, but God looks at actions. And ask them, when you do something good, how does that make you feel? That makes you feel good. Well, then fine. Just make sure you always incorporate something good in each part of your day. Do good for others. Do good for nature. If you see a little ant or bug, don't necessarily step and kill it if you don't have to. If it's a spider, absolutely, get the blowtorch. Okay? I don't like spiders. I get that. Or if something that's going to attack you. But if you see a bee, don't bug the bee. Let the bee go on. Have a respect for life, nature, and it'll reward you. Comes full circle. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I've received a couple emails over the last few months that I haven't addressed, but I think I want to address them now because there's a few that are kind of similar. And I kind of like combining similar topics. So one of you had asked, how did I get my boys to agree to go to Catholic school? And what did I think about Catholic school in terms of education? That was an interesting question. So I was going to write them back, and I never had a chance to. And then when we were talking about charities, and one of you had been a critic of the church, talking about how the donations are being publicized, what donations they make, and they're making tens of thousands of dollars a week, and how you think that churches could be some of the biggest, shall we say, recipients of I guess donations that might not necessarily be the best use of spending. And I don't want to go into what they said because I kind of disagree. They were talking about scams and things like that. And I have a much more appreciative, I guess, attitude towards religion and donations because, that to me, when the Bible said we had to submit a tithe, do our tithe, that was, like I said, originally in the Old Testament, where in order for the rabbis or those were Levites at the time to run the synagogue and to provide that support, to provide prayer, somebody had to support them. Just like we pay taxes for there to be police, for there to be firefighters. We can't do it all. So in order for there to be these other people doing these other jobs that you need, you come up with a system. And for religion, it was a tithe where 10% of your income would go to the temple or synagogue. Some churches kept that on. The LDS Mormon Church does that, where they do the tithe. Some Jews will still do a tithe. Some might do less. Some might do more. But it's, to me, pretty, I think, justified. Because if they are there they have rent to pay, they have security, they have clergy they have to pay, they have admin, they provide welfare and support for individuals. I absolutely have no problem donating or doing what needs to be done to help the community. Now, the church and religion has not become as, shall we say, much of a cornerstone in cities and communities as it used to be. And so now people are questioning. They're like, well, why am I giving them this money? I have to give money to everybody. There's, everybody else now asking for money. And I'm not saying the church provides security, etc. But if people don't go to church on a regular basis, they don't, or temple, etc., they aren't necessarily seeing where that money goes to. They're not understanding the benefits. They're not utilizing it. And there's also now a lot more, I guess, choices for individuals to go. There are, Catholics, Anglicans, Episcopalians, Christians, Jews. There's different types of Judaism. You have Orthodox Judaism. You have Reformed Judaism. You have Conservative Judaism. You have Chabad. You have, and so it, every you have mosques. You have, so every, shall we say, entity needs their Buddhists, Hindus. They need their support system. And I see the work that they do. I also understand their salaries, and I understand there's admin and rent and air conditioning, etc. And so for me, I'm very lenient as it pertains to what they need, because their enrollment is very volatile now and vulnerable. And so as opposed to government funded entities or universities who could rely on, funds and the religious sector is very vulnerable. And I really worry that one day we're not going to have the protection that we need for our religious institutions as people are becoming less pro-religion and less supportive of that. And I really worry because their role is imperative and crucial. So my attitude towards that is, if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're being transparent about where the funds go, and most of these entities need to be, especially if they're nonprofit, I'm absolutely fine with the donation aspect of that. Now, in terms of how did I get my boys to go to Catholic school? It was easy. They wanted to go. Now, why would my boys want to go to Catholic school? Because all their friends were going. So the grade school they were going to just ended up where was one of the feeder schools to Bishop Gorman. Now, Bishop Gorman, so it's interesting because I got another email saying, Bishop Gorman didn't Bishop Gorman have a stereotype or a reputation back in the 80s? There was a reputation, as many private schools did have, especially in the 80s, where those who went to, I guess, private school had more money, and some of these individuals with more money had more access to drugs. So when I was in high school, Bishop Gorman was known to be a party school. That changed. And I got to tell you, I was really, really impressed with how Bishop Gorman had changed in terms of doing drug testing, in terms of, in fact, my son wanted to goof around. He just likes to mess with the teachers. He got that from me. And so he's sitting in his car and he's waiting to pick up his brother. And one of the priests walks by. So he rubs his nose really, really fast and smiles. So the priest calls him in, saying, now we got to do a drug test, right? Because that's what they would do. They did a periodic drug test. So he does a drug test. Of course, he's clean because he doesn't do drugs and whatever. And then I get a call, from the school saying, just want to let you know we did this. He was negative for drugs. And I go, was he doing the wipe nose thing again? You know what? Go ahead and suspend him. Yeah. And they're like, well, we don't have to. He didn't. He passed everything. I go, yeah, but he does stupid, and I'm sick of his jokes. All right, I don't want him to waste your time. But he thought it was funny and all that. But they're really diligent with that. I mean, I was really impressed with how they had been very, engaged in making sure that kids were not, because of the previous reputation of the school from decades ago. The other reason why I would recommend Catholic school to individuals is the support system. If I could have had access to a priest in high school or school, I would have loved that. I mean, I remember there were school counselors, and I went to 12 schools, but I would have, I remember not really liking the counselors too much. And I remember my parents telling me if I spoke to a school counselor about anything at home, I'd get in trouble. But if I could go to a priest and I could say, look, or rabbi, saying, I was there to talk about religion. I wasn't there, to talk about home life. That could have been really conducive. And, I asked my kids, I go, do you guys go to confession when you're at Catholic school? They go, Mom, there is no confession at Catholic school. I go, but you have mass. Why isn't there confession? They go, because the line would be out the door, through the parking lot onto the street, okay, of kids confessing, and nobody would go to class. There's no time, right, for, there's not enough religious staff for there to be. Now, I am sure some people are able to work out confession, but, the fact, though, that the kids know that there is support, though, for them, and they actually liked mass. They dressed up. And then the education was fantastic. So, yeah, I am a fan of Catholic school, religious school. I think there's a lot that can be offered. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by financial fitness show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.